Okay. Hi, Nicole. How are you?
I'm good, Douglas. How are you?
Doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Where are you calling from?
I am calling from Central Florida.
Oh,
It's nice
okay.
and toasty here.
Now, bad. And did you get any problems with the storms that have come through, or did you survive all that?
Thankfully, we've been all right. We've just gotten some residual rain, but so far so good. Knock on wood.
Oh, well, that's good. According to your bio, it says you're a smitten wife. What does that mean?
I am very fortunate. My husband and I have been together for over a decade, and he is just a fantastic human being. So he is the reason behind a lot of the romance that I write.
Oh, well, that's very sweet. I think that's nice.
I always say that it's you need to like them as much as you love them.
Yeah, it's very funny too because a lot of people, not all people, but a lot of people the romantic side of the relationship comes first. And
Yes,
once you get married and start living for real and seeing how people are when they're not made up and trying to look their best, things can change.
absolutely. I mean, you have to know whether or not the fact that he put his, shirt next to the hamper instead of in the hamper is going to be a deal breaker for you. And just, those day-to-day responsibilities of having a life with someone are just as important as, the butterflies and how good they are to you.
Oh, you
So for
bet.
sure.
Yeah. And like you said, it's important that you become friends versus just lovers because it's two separate
Absolutely.
relationships. It really
Absolutely.
is.
He is my
Yeah.
best friend on top of being, the guy who gives me butterflies. So
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate in that.
Oh, well, that's great. Also, super proud dog mom. And what kind of dogs do you have?
I have three rescue dogs. I have a Pomeranian Chihuahua. His name is Loki. I have, we're not really sure what he is. He's kind of a Corgi Dash Hound mix. He's a rescue from the Bahamas. His name is Rocky. And then I have an American Eskimo whose name is Benji, and he is my Velcro dog. I often joke that he is my poof reader because he is always with me when I'm writing, when I'm editing. He's right next to me right now, but I won't move the camera to show. So, but yeah, he's my buddy.
So, you've got a book out, and this is your debut novel called Catalyst, yeah?
Yep.
All
Yep.
right. You want to tell us about the book?
Absolutely. So it is the story of a mafia don who runs Chicago. He is what's known as the Don Supreme. So there are several mafia clans in Chicago. They have been for many generations, nearly a century in this world. And he is the head of all the clans. And he kind of lives this shadowy life of crime and like a negotiation with the government to keep a certain level of crime and chaos. And he also is a hotelier. So he owns a chain of hotels, one of them being this very nice hotel called the Jefferson in Chicago. And our female main character, she comes into the situation because she is staying at the hotel for a week for her cousin's wedding, and she is having a little bit of a hard time because her ex-fiance is the best man, and so she's kind of forced proximity to him, and she's trying to be strong and really get through it. And in the chaos that ensues when she kind of intercepts a kidnapping of the mafia don's daughter at the hotel, she's kind of thrust into a situation where she meets him, and they just kind of collide. And at first, it's kind of a rocky introduction because, he lives in this world where nobody does especially good things for no reason. And so he's very suspicious of her, and she just kind of thinks he's a jerk because, she rescued his daughter, and he's just kind of like, what's your motivation? And she's like, it's just the right thing to do. And he's just completely blown away by someone like her, and he just can't get her out of his head. And kind of the same for her, but it's the two of them kind of coming into the situation and being a catalyst, as the book is called, for change in each other's lives. So I would say for Jackson, Natalie is a catalyst for change because she is the first person who can kind of bring down these self-protective walls that he's put up over the years. He is a widower and he's a single dad. And, she is a catalyst for change, or, he becomes a catalyst for change in her life when he kind of pushes her to stand up for herself. So he doesn't actually give her any strength, but he helps her realize her own strength. And in the process, they just kind of collide in this, irrevocable situation that will forever change their lives.
Oh, sounds very interesting. What were you doing before you wrote this book?
I worked in marketing and I worked in HR for many years.
Okay. What made you decide to write a book?
So I've always been a writer. When I was a kid, I lived in a neighborhood that there weren't a lot of children my age. So I had to entertain myself. And I was an only child. I have a half brother, but I didn't see him very often. And I just, had to entertain myself. So I spent a lot of time writing, fictional stories just for fun. And as I got older, I would share some of those stories with my friends. And I remember when I was in middle school, I had a friend that the two of us would exchange stories on Mondays. So we would go home on Friday, write a couple chapters, and then come in on Monday and we would exchange stories. And it just kind of always kept it in my brain as something I really enjoyed. So when the pandemic happened and, we were stuck in a situation where, you had to find things to do with yourself. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
When you had to find things to do with yourself, I was kind of like, I'm going to take this to be to the next level. So I put it on paper and just started doing it to kind of keep my mind occupied. And the more it kind of came together, I was like, this is incredible. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. I've got two dogs here. They're out in the hallway. But yeah, I'm an absolute dog lover, so it doesn't bother me a bit.
Okay. Yeah, he's got his opinions. I call him his opinions.
Oh, most of them do. I'm just curious, was this story something that you had for a while and just kind of built on it? I mean, you had the sort of premise of the story already, the characters were developing in your mind, and
Yeah, so I actually I have plans for this series to be a 3-book series. There will be a 4th book, but it will change the perspectives. Catalyst, Ignite, and Flashpoint, which will be the 3 in the trilogy, will be written from alternating chapters between the male and female perspective, Jackson and Natalie. But the entire plot line I actually mapped out before I even wrote a word of the first book. So that was something that I wanted to turn into ultimately a 12-book, what I'm calling a mafia verse, where we have all of these characters that we come to love in Catalyst and Ignite, and they're kind of coming in and out of the different stories. So ultimately, there will be 12 books. In this trilogy, there'll be 3, Catalyst, Ignite, and then Flashpoint, which is due in the spring. And those will be the first of the stories, and then there'll be alternating stories that'll come in and out with different perspectives. So, but the entire plot line was written from the very beginning and was, mapped out from the start so that you could have interchanging little clues that would show up in book 1 and be really important in books 2 and 3. Because I've always been a fan of stories that do that kind of weave these massive webs. And ultimately, even though we'll see different books that have different perspectives, we'll still see our main characters that are featured in Catalyst and Ignite. So there's big plans for it. But in this trilogy, we kind of focused on what I called the 4 stages of a fire. So you would have the catalyst, ignition, and then the flashpoint, and then the remaining one would be called embers, which will be from a different perspective, but kind of keeping that fire flame.
a lot of people always ask in interviews of authors to have the author compare their book to somebody else, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ask you to compare your writing to a movie that you may have seen. Is there a movie
Yeah, that's a good one. I would definitely say I think Catalyst is of the same category as there's 365 Days, which is big on Netflix right now. And kind of like a Stephen King thriller. So it was written to definitely be a romance, and that's the main focus of the story. But the mystery and the suspense of the story is equally important. So I do have a decent amount of male readers that enjoy it as well. So it isn't just written for the ladies, but I would say that it's pretty close to like a 65 days type thing, when you feature that mafia romance that or Peaky Blinders, which is, I guess, is a TV show, not a movie, but similar to that, kind of the crime lifestyle that they live and why they live it is very similar to both of those.
Okay, what genre would you put this book in?
I would put it in like a suspense romance or a mystery thriller romance.
Now, this book is out at this point.
Yes, there's actually two books that are out. I have Catalyst is the first, and then Ignite is the second, and that just dropped at September 1st of this month.
Oh, great. How's it doing?
It's good. I really had a lot of pressure. I mean, there was a lot of sleepless nights to make sure that Ignite, which is the second book, measured up to Catalyst, because I had a lot of fans that kind of loved Catalyst, and I wanted to make sure that it was the same caliber. So the feedback so far has been great. So they've just said that they kind of felt like the story just continued. Catalyst ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. And when you think of it was kind of a play on words, because a catalyst is something that comes into the situation, changes the situation, and then leaves. So that's kind of a bit of foreshadowing for Catalyst. And I knew that when they finished Catalyst, they would immediately want Ignite. So I wanted Ignite to be that bang. And I would say I think it definitely delivers for, being the follow-up to Catalyst.
How long does it normally take you to write a book?
I'm kind of crazy. I would write at least 2,000 words a day, some days more than that. So I would say that Catalyst, which was about 154,000 words, took me 6 months at the start of the pandemic. And Ignite, I'm sorry, took me 4. And it's about 200,000 words. So it's slightly bigger. So I mean, it really just depends on whether or not the story is flowing and, what other factors you have going on in your life. So my husband and I kind of live a quiet life. We don't really have a whole lot of evening plans. So writing is my evening plan. And I write in the car. I write, while I'm laying in bed. Whenever it just kind of comes to me, I kind of feel like the characters are always screaming in my head, and sometimes just to get them to shut up, I have to write.
Well, I think that's great because a lot of people have roadblocks sometimes with their writing. And I'm sure you've hit dead spots. What do you do to get it going again? Can you turn it back on, or do you have a process?
I do. So I was very fortunate. When I first started writing, I found this wonderful YouTuber, and I wish I could remember her name, that put out this hey, new writers, here's some advice and tips for you. And one of her tips was, she said that writer's block isn't real. It's just undisciplined writing. And at first I was like, what is this? But as she explained it, when you create a writing habit where every single day you are setting aside at least an hour to write, you will be surprised how infrequently writer's block hits you, because you can power through that with just setting that writing habit and just writing every single day. Now, whether or not you come in the next day and you rewrite everything that you wrote the previous day is irrelevant. It's just still setting that habit. And when I wrote out the entire plot, as I said, for all 3 books in this trilogy, I created what I called a skeleton for each book. And what that meant was that Catalyst has 45 chapters. I sat down and I wrote down what each of those 45 chapters was going to entail. And that way, depending on what mood I was in, whether I was in a, very lovey, romantic, mystical mood, I could write from Natalie's perspective. Or if I was in more of let's go to war, tough energy, I could write from Jackson's perspective. And I could actually jump around and choose which chapters I wanted to write based on the mood I was in. And it was really interesting because on days that I felt like I didn't want to write, if I just sat down and started writing, that was actually some of my best work that came out. And I just kind of learned that it has to be a habit. It has to be a priority. And if, you have a passion for writing, it will show, and it will actually, propel you through those moments of, struggling to write or find content. So it just kind of, it works. It was probably the most useful piece of advice that I found was set your writing habit and stick to it. So there'd be days that I would go to bed and I'd be like, you know what? I didn't write today. And I would get out of bed and I would go write for an hour. And that could be some of my favorite content that was created. So
Well, that's interesting.
it's kind of amazing.
It's almost like a gym routine where you
It
just have to go.
It is.
you
I
know.
wish I could stick to a gym routine as well as I've stuck to my writing routine. My life would be better for it.
Nicole, we do have to wrap this up. We are out of time. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
I do. My website is called nherownwords.com. So it's N like Nicole, herownwords.com. And it features both books. And there's actually a little teaser for Ignite on the website as well.
Okay, great. Are there links to your social media on your website?
Yes, there are.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you and nice talking to you.